Welcome back to the Quantum Guide Show. I am pleased to introduce you to paranormal researchers Dawn Archer and Lainey Loy. Dawn
Thank
and Lainey
you
live in the
for having
southwest suburbs of Chicago, and Dawn has always had a special interest in things that are spooky. He loves Halloween and technology, so he put them together to create Spectrewaves Paranormal in 2013. Lainey is the love of Dawn's life since 2006. She experienced some paranormal activity when she was young. Lainey shares Dawn's passion for spooky things and is co-founder of Spectrewaves Paranormal. Before we get into some of their experiences, let me give you just a little bit of background. Dawn is a movie theater manager, a legal and medical audiovisual manager, an event DJ, a remote promo host for local radio, Joliet, Illinois, a voiceover artist, and was second team for Fisher Stevens' fifth season early edition CBS in 1996, and has performed multiple extra roles in TV and film throughout the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Lainey is a promotional model. She holds an associate degree in computer sciences, is co-founder of Spectrewaves Paranormal, is a fitness model, and is a certified open water scuba diver. Welcome, Dawn and Lainey, to the show. How are you folks?
Oh, good. Thank you for having us, especially in this climate and unfortunately, under bad times and bad circumstances. But we hope this brightens somebody's day at least, or gives them something to watch other than Netflix, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So to get started, can you tell me and my folks a little bit about how you came to create Spectrewaves Paranormal?
Sure. And I'll take that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Is that so? Um, I met Lainey in 2006, and we both had a passion for Halloween. Is that My fascination with the paranormal goes all the way back to the 1980s. I created a map of souls, which was a hand-drawn map of local haunted places in and around Chicago. And so even before Paracons even happened, they had similar to what would be a Paracon now. They had these ghost expos in Chicago, and so I attended one of the ghost expos, and that's where we rented a table like a lot of people at Paracons do, and we sold this map, and we sold this map in 1982. And ironically, is that I thought that there was no maps left except for the one that I had, and I keep running into people in the Chicagoland area who have the map. I can't believe they have kept this map for all these years, but my fascination with it went all the way back to then. So when I met Lainey, we loved Halloween, and we exchanged ghost stories, and had a great time. Always doing decoration for Halloween, and so we both had a passion for it. And it was right around the time where shows started to become predominant on TV, like Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters. And so one day, we used to watch the shows periodically, and we would discuss things that we saw on the show. And, it would always come back to some of Lainey's experiences or experiences that I had previously, and we'd talk about them. Well, one day I was reading online that it had a blog from some junior producer that was on Ghost Hunters that said everything is faked, that they close the doors, they do the knocks, they and this person he said couldn't live with themselves, and they wanted to put this out there, that's what happens during the production, right? So as a challenge, I talked to Lainey about it, and I said, why don't we go get a couple pieces of equipment, right? We'll do a little research, and then we'll go find. Now, we know that some of these haunted locations, you can rent time for a private investigation, or they have these ghost hunts where they'll have 20 people in there that come and do a purported haunted location. So I said, why don't we look into this? And so we did, and we went to a couple of locations. And this was in about 2013 that we decided to start doing this. And lo and behold, we had a spirit box. For any of your listeners who don't know what a spirit box is, it's basically an FM radio, AM or FM radio, that scans the entire frequency band. And you can do that forward and backwards if you have particular ones. They also have apps now that you can use on a phone to do that, right? But we had the old analog one that actually scanned front and reverse. We had an IR camera that we purchased online, like anybody could. It's a night vision camera. And, we had a digital recorder, and we had a millimeter that we bought that measures EMF, and it also has a REM pod in there where if anything gets close and interrupts the field that's being broadcast from the antenna, people, it'll go off, it'll activate, right? And, the idea behind that is that basically, for any of your listeners who don't know what that is that EMF, electromagnetic frequency, is produced by this REM pod. And it puts a bubble, think of an invisible bubble around that antenna. And so if anything breaks that bubble, the alarm goes off. And so the idea behind it is that people believe that entities, spirits, give off electromagnetic frequency. They produce that. That's how they interact with our environment. And so we went there and really wanted to do it as totally upfront as we possibly could, not faking anything, just for our own benefit. And sure enough, we got a voice. We went to what was purported to be Capone's warehouse the first time, and we got a voice. We got a voice that said Thomas, and we were shocked. I mean, you can imagine how excited we were that it actually worked, right? I was like, wow, this is not a waste of time. And so that just drove us to go forward and to do at that point, we were doing maybe one every couple of months. We would try to go find a location, or we'd try to go find a haunted road or what have you, and just conduct these little experiments. And every time we went, we garnished some information. We actually got some things. So I was like, wow. And then tragedy struck us. And this was the unfortunate part of this. Just as we started to get started doing this, Lainey got sick, and I'll turn it over to Lainey and let her talk.
I was actually diagnosed with leukemia, AML, APL, M3, subtype M3. What that meant was I was in Loyola and I was on my deathbed. Basically, I was planning my funeral. They did tell me I was not going to make it. As fast as they were giving me blood and plasma, I was pouring the blood out of my system. I just kept thinking, stay positive. I'm going to beat this. And, you're planning your last rites. You're getting your last rites. And sure enough, 5 months in the hospital ICU department, I was able to beat leukemia, but I came so close to the death plane. I believe that something has made me closer to the paranormal. And not only being closer to the paranormal, but I had such a good mindset of knowing that I was not going to die, that I was going to beat this. And the mind was so powerful at that time, because I know if I would have thought I was going to die, I bet you I would have died. And
the interesting thing was that the doctors had told her, they said, they basically, because she was bleeding out, they said, listen, we don't know if we can arrest this. Is that now in the past, her type of leukemia, up until about 2015-ish, or up until about 2012, they were still doing clinical trials on this type of leukemia because it's really rare. And the previous way that they treated it, right, they would try to give you chemotherapy in the normal respect of radiation and they knew that, and they would try to do for this leukemia, just like other leukemias, they would try to do a bone marrow transplant, but they realized that their success rate was less than 1%. They actually, 99% of the people prior to 2010 died from this illness. Right. Is that there was no, they had no good course of action. And they came up with a new course of action after about 2010 in the United States. They started to do clinical trials on this. And it's interesting because it's not chemo in the sense that you would think of. It's arsenic and Atra.
Wow.
And so Atra is a toxic form of vitamin A. And so they gave her both of those intravenously, daily, day after day after day. And what they came to find out was in these, just like in the clinical trials, what happens eventually is the arsenic and the Atra combined kill the leukemic cells so that the new blood cells, the new red blood cells, can repopulate, and then you're cured. So the great thing about this particular clinical trial and procedure is that it has changed this particular leukemia from 99% death to 99% cure, meaning full remission. So I'm fortunate that my Lainey is still next to me. And she just middle of last year spring, she just had another examination by her oncologist, and she's been in remission for 5 years.
Yes.
No sign of leukemia at all.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I know mindset has a lot to do with it, so congratulations on that
Thank you.
too.
Even afterwards, having that positive mindset is so important still.
So and here's the
and it gave you a bridge, to the spirit realm.
Definitely, yes.
You got a bridge out of it. So I mean, it's a terrible thing what you went through, but now you have a gift that came with your recovery. So this is a good thing.
Right.
And so here's the interesting thing, right? Is that she became a lot more sensitive. Now, we wouldn't call it psychic. Neither of us would agree with, with saying that she's, full out medium and but when we go on investigations and after she got better, we started going on investigations again because she really wanted to do it. I was fine if she would have said, let's just end this and not do this anymore. But she was even more intrigued by doing it. And on the few investigations that we went to prior to her illness, is that I would make suggestions all the time. Let's go upstairs. Let's go. You want to go to the third floor? And she'd be like, okay, and she'd just go along with it, right? And afterwards, we went to our first couple of locations afterwards, and she was adamant about, I really want to go over here, or I want to go up to the second floor, or I want to go to the basement. And we would go, and we would garnish a lot more activity than we ever have in the past, ever. And so now, I totally listen to her. I don't even make suggestions anymore. I just say, what do you feel? What do you think? Do you want to go? Do you want to go over here? Do you want to go over there? And so we go and do that, and that's the great thing for us, because we garnish a lot more activity, and we still, we're for that endless search of where does your energy go once you pass away, right? Is that and that's what we really try to find. We really try to find out. And one of the interesting things that Crown Point Jail in Crown Point, Indiana. It's an old jail in Indiana and a lot of the states up until the mid 70s. They had a provision where the sheriff had to live at the jail. So the front part of the jail was essentially their home, and then it was absolutely attached. You could walk through the living room, you go out, and that's where the booking area is, and then you go beyond that, and that's where the jail is. Okay, and that was in place. Anybody who was elected sheriff in a lot of these counties across the United States, they were obligated to live there with their family. So Crown Point was one of these older structures that were like this, and so we had gone there prior to her being sick. Then we went back afterwards, and here was the nice thing about it. The absolute great thing about it was when we went back the second time, we captured. It was really our first big event. We had gotten things of, you'd hear knocking, or we'd get a lot of words on the spirit box. We would hear a lot of things, some of which seemed to be intelligent responses, not residual responses. And for your audience, residual is what we believe, and what a lot of investigators believe, is like a tape loop that just continually keeps playing of an event or an occurrence that's happened in that location where there's no interaction. They don't know you're there. You can't get the opportunity to hear anything beyond what that particular moment in time was. Intelligent obviously speaks for itself. You can communicate, and you can get intelligent responses back. So, Crown Point, we were there, and previously Lainey had gotten her hair pulled there. It was the first kind of interaction that we ever.
Yeah, I did. And at the same time, my hair was raising up, and we actually caught that on camera. Also, my millimeter starts spiking, it starts going off. And the millimeter has a REM pod. In order for that REM pod to go off, you literally have to touch it. You have to grab a hold of it. And then at the same time, what else went off? Wasn't there one more device?
Oh no, it was the millimeter that spiked though.
That was okay.
Yeah,
but
so the EMF,
capturing that on video with
right.
the hair actually raising up was really cool. What it kind of felt like was when you rub two balloons together, that kind of static electricity feel.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it felt like.
And so beyond that, the second time that we went back, is we were intrigued by that. Of course, we captured some. So you can't really define it as intelligent, but we did capture some voices on the spirit box. So we'd gone back, and we were wrapping up the investigation the second time we were there. We were on the third floor, which is the old juvenile hall, so they still have bunk beds. In this big open area, right? And so it's a private investigation. It wasn't a an open investigation. So Sandy, who runs the Crown Point Jail for the board, she was downstairs. She's very nice, and she always lets us go investigate any way we want to investigate. So we were up there, and we were wrapping up, and we still had a spirit box going, and I decided to start taking some pictures of Lainey, not pictures of the environment, but pictures of Lainey, so that we could use them self-serving, right? So we could use them on our website,
right.
And so I was taking pictures, and I kept getting a white streak that kept coming across the camera, and I was intrigued, and I wanted to keep. I kept taking pictures in hopes that I would catch that white streak, because it kept happening. It wasn't any kind of reflection from any surface. It just kept happening, and during that time, spirit box is still going. All of a sudden, we hear somebody running up the stairs, these metal stairs. They run up the stairs. We hear a growl. The spirit box goes off and says, "What?" And then a giant slam to the back wall. All of this happens within about 60 seconds. And, and this is a plug for us, right? So if anybody's interested who's listening that would like to go to our YouTube channel, which is Spectrewaves, because we like to say it twice, right? Yes. is that if you want to go to our YouTube channel and check it out, it's called, that particular video, it's not very long, it's called High Activity, Crown Point Jail. So that was our big first endeavor into really having some physical interactions that were beyond the spirit box and beyond the REM pod, where, even with the hair pull, I mean, this was all allocated to like a minute, right? I mean, it was intense. I will say that is that we didn't know which way to turn. We were like surrounded, and true investigators that we are, you know what we did? We went back to taking pictures again and stayed up there. We didn't leave. We didn't run. We didn't go down the stairs. We didn't do anything. We stayed there and took pictures. So.
That's great. And I just want to say that any of the links that you talk about in the show, we're going to have them in the description box below, so folks can find you. So make sure I have all your links too. Okay. So that's awesome.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, oh my goodness, it's so interesting. And, the natural response for people is to be afraid and run away from this sort of thing. And I myself have had actually quite a few. I don't know why people come to see me after they die. They come, and it's no big deal. It's not like I get some profound message. They just come and see me. And I always tell them, just enjoy your afterlife. Don't worry about anything here. And they're gone. And then the next day I get a phone call from someone say, oh, did you know that so-and-so passed? I say, yeah, they came to see me yesterday on their way out. I have no idea why, but I have never had a scary experience myself. I've heard about scary experiences, and sometimes that's part of the thrill. People want to be a little bit scared. Have you
Sure.
ever really been in danger, though? Have you felt that you were ever in danger?
No, fortunately we haven't, and
No.
we try to, if there's purported things about demonic activity, okay, or
Oh, yeah.
dark activity, right?
Mhm.
Is that we try to steer clear of that, not out of fear, but out of fear of attachment. I mean, we really
Mhm.
truly believe that it can adversely affect your relationships, your health, and so you have to be careful. I mean, we of course have necklaces that we use that have a whole host of different things organized,
Organic
and yeah.
crystals,
Mhm.
yes.
So and holy water in a vial, a blessed Catholic. What
Holy
is?
bread,
Yeah.
the little
The
um
saint something? I don't know. I don't know.
Saint Christopher,
Saint Christopher. That's
Saint
it.
Hey,
Benedict.
Christopher,
Yeah.
yeah.
So and we so we wear those, for protection, right? And we've been
Mhm.
fortunate that I don't think that we've ever experienced anything extremely dark.
No.
And it is, and you're really right. I mean, part of your psyche is, it is kind of a thrill. I mean, we're not big thrill seekers. We don't jump out of planes. We don't, I
Right.
mean, Lainey did scuba dive, but
It's
is
peaceful.
that it's peaceful though,
So
right?
peaceful.
Yeah, is that so we don't have we're not big thrill seekers where we go out and do crazy stuff all the time, and so I don't think it's
Right.
really the adrenaline pump. I really think it's the intrigue of um, actually trying to find something, trying to come to an answer, like an age old question answer, right? And maybe prove that um, as well as you can. Is
Mhm.
Where does the energy go once we do pass away? And I'm sure everybody would like to know that question, but trying to get the answer is
Yeah, right, right.
seems to
So,
be hard.
so here brings me to one of the things that I wanted to share with
Yeah.
everyone, right? Because that is an age-old question. It is, a lot of people, say there's a lot of skeptics out there, okay? More so in the United States, believe it or not, than there is in Europe. Europe seems to be very accepting
Yeah.
of the spirit realm, right?
Right.
Is
I
that
agree.
but in the United States, still a lot of skepticism. A lot of people, depending on parts of the country that you go, look at you with their eyes crossed, thinking, that you pull up and you're like, wow, what do these guys think they're Ghostbusters? Is that
Right.
where's your packs? You know.
Right.
So, um, and so one of the more interesting things that's ever happened to us is we went to McPike Mansion, and McPike
Mhm.
Mansion
Yes.
is in Alton, Illinois. And so it's about 25 minutes away from the border between St. Louis and Illinois. And so we went down there. It's an old community. Is and McPike is purported to be one of the most haunted mansions in the United States. So we wanted to go check it out, right?
Yes.
Is that so? It was August of 2018. We drove down there. We met with Sharon Ludke, who actually owns the McPike Mansion. It's not a historical society. She owns it. She lives across the street from it, but she owns it. Is that, and we went there, and uh, we're in the process of setting up. And one thing I will say this is that when we met with Sharon, Sharon had informed us at that time that about 3 weeks prior, Ghost Adventures had been there. And and she railed about them being there, about the fact that she didn't really, Zach, let's just put it this way, Zach is not one of her favorite people. And, she said the other folks were polite and accommodating. And she said that she probably, more than likely, would never invite them back um, because she's very protective of the spirits and the ghosts that are in her mansion. And she said that she thought that they were dismissive, and they kept insisting to her that there were demons, that they wanted to keep talking to her about. I think there's demons here. She said there's no demons there. Okay, it's just people who have passed on that refuse to leave the property. And so, in the process of us setting up for McPike, the first interesting thing that happened was we weren't even ready. I just started rolling on the camera. It was still daylight, and we were starting to go through our procedures to be able to ensure the fact that all the batteries were working, all the equipment was on. So Lainey was on the porch. She had put her phone down on a wicker chair. Now, one thing that we'll tell you during our investigations is that when we begin to set up for our investigations, we go into airplane mode on all the cell phones, because that can adversely, that GSM signal, when it ramps up, and that's the antenna that everybody sees, is that when that GSM signal ramps up, it can adversely affect the REM pods and the EMF meter. You'll get false readings because of it. Is that so? We know that in advance. So anybody who's deciding to investigate, always remember that's the first thing that you should do. Okay, put it on airplane mode or leave it in the car. Yes. Otherwise, you're going to get false readings. You're going to be excited, but you're going to get false readings. So, and once you go beyond that, and she sets the phone down, I actually had some equipment that was on the side of the porch, right? So you want to tell a little bit of the story?
Well, that's when the phone went ahead and started taking pictures by itself, and it would go in threes. Took 3 pictures, and then it would go ahead into video and start recording by itself. Then it would go back to taking more photos.
And so we were fortunate enough that we knew that this was an active location, but we didn't know that they were starting with us before we even started, right? Before we were ready to go. And one of the interesting things for the folks out there is that we have an Ovilus, and perhaps you've watched Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters or Haunted Live or Haunted Asylums. I could go down the list. Right. A lot of people end up having this Ovilus, right? This Ovilus is a phonetic dictionary as one of the feature sets that's in there, right? So the idea behind it is that if the electromagnetic field is manipulated around the device, it can generate words to be able to communicate with spirits. And one thing that a couple of caveats that I'll tell people, even if you watch shows on TV, is that the one thing that the Ovilus does is that it goes through a preset setup when you turn it on. So it always generates 2 words. And it's funny to us, right? Because, of course, most of the things that are on paranormal shows, some of the stuff is real, okay? And some of the stuff is, shall I say, exaggerated. Yeah. Exaggerated, yeah. Yes. That's yeah. So with the Ovilus, you turn it on, it says 2 words as it's going through that pre-setup. And we've seen it happen too many times. We laugh all the time if we're watching one of the shows and the guy's like, "Oh my God, do you see? It says song and bird."
2 words.
2 words, right? Because they just turned it on.
Every single time it's going to do
so
that.
It happens all the time. It's the stuff that happens after the 2 words where you're not around it that you should be intrigued by. Right. So we had an Ovilus on the porch, and while this phone situation was going on, right, and we do have it on video, so you guys can check that out. We've never had it happen in any other location except here. The Ovilus that was way down the porch started to talk, okay, and it said?
It said gateway, and it said phone.
And then right after that,
at the same time, that's when the Ovilus actually stopped working. We couldn't get it to work anymore. And then still, as that's going on, the phone is taking pictures by itself and turning the video. Now, we did look at the phone to see if we caught some kind of odd picture or whatever.
Which would have been really cool,
yeah,
right?
Right. But nothing showed up. Nothing at all.
So, and then I couldn't get that Ovilus to work until really the next day. We had gone back to the hotel to go to sleep and stuff, and really the next day could not get it to work. Now, here's the second interesting thing about McPike. Okay, that was kind of a side note, but this is what really gave us pause about the fact and to really keep pursuing this as intensely as we do. We've gone across the country. We don't just stay in Illinois to do these things. We've been to Connecticut, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, LA. Right. So we've tried to be broad stroking of these different things, so that we weren't compartmentalized just to Illinois. And what ended up happening with this is so strange, is that, now keep in mind that Ghost Adventures was there 3 weeks prior to us. We have no interaction with Ghost Adventures. We don't know them. They don't know us. I don't even think we're friends on Facebook. So towards the later stages of the investigation, we were in the foyer, we were doing a spirit box session, and there's doors, 2 doors that are original to the property that have these, I don't know if anybody's ever seen that, or if you have, there's these opaque leaded glass windows in the doors where you couldn't define, you could see light, but that's about it. You can't define any human being that's standing behind the door. It wouldn't even look like a shadow. It would be so diffused that you weren't sure if it was, just a shadow or a person or a light, or, you can't really tell. So as we're wrapping up the spirit box session, right, Lainey,
I go ahead and I see a red streak and a white streak outside on the front yard through the door. And I go, Don, did you see that? I just saw a red streak and a white streak. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh no, wait a minute, we have equipment out there. Now it's late at night, and I mean, there's thousands of dollars of equipment. So the first thing I think is maybe someone's going towards the equipment. So we were both like kind of freaking out. We're like, oh no.
So we run out the door and we go check. There's nobody. Now, the front porch of this building is, it's a mansion. So the front porch of this building is long. And for the time that because we were in the foyer, that was literally, we were maybe 4 feet away from that front door. Run out the door, go look. Nobody's there. You couldn't have made it around the building. I don't care how fast you were. Okay. Usain Bolt couldn't make it around the building, right?
No.
Is that so? We're out there. So we left the door open, and we had a static camera running, just a regular video camera on IR that was videotaping us doing our spirit box session. So we left it running. It was on a tripod, and it kept running. So we walk out the door, and all of a sudden we hear this. We hear. Now, I will tell you this, is that there was, this is it's a rural area, but it's not farm. This is neighborhoods like you would, in a small town or a relatively small town. It's a neighborhood. There's no farms there. There's no horses there. There's no horse farms there. Okay. There's no horses that run up and down a street there. Is that
nor cobblestone?
Right. It's just regular asphalt.
Right.
But the sound is distinct. If you've ever heard horse hooves on basically cobblestone, it's a distinct sound. And so we were shocked. We were, and we both referenced it, right? Fortunately, because the video camera's running, you don't see us on the video camera because it didn't follow us, obviously.
Right.
But you hear it. And we caught it live, which was the great part of this whole thing, because I don't think anybody would have believed this story, if they would have been like, yeah, sure, you're right. I
don't think so. No.
Is that even though it would have been our own personal experience,
right?
Nobody would have right? So,
right.
So after this happens, we were all excited, and it kept going. This went on for probably a good minute and a half of this sound. It would fade away and it would come back. Fast forward to, we found out when Ghost Adventures was going to air the episode that they were at McPike Mansion. So, of course, we were curious. We wanted to see what they caught and in relationship to what we caught, right? And, so you're always curious. And about halfway through the show, I was shocked. I was floored. I sat on the couch. I actually played it back to Lainey, and I said, you're not going to believe this. I go, look what he says. Halfway through the show, Zach, we know where he's standing. He's standing on the front lawn. There's a fire pit that's right there. Standing there, turns to Aaron and says, do you hear that? It's horses. It's like horses on cobblestone.
So cool.
Now, again, they were there 3 weeks before we were there. And here was the great part of it, right? Their audio didn't catch it. Our audio did. His description of it is the same as our description almost word for word, and we had no idea that they had even encountered that. Now, here's where, here's where it really comes into play, is that I did some more research behind it. Number one, I saw no information from anybody who went to McPike talking about this horse thing that anybody could have drawn reference from. Okay.
Right.
The second thing with it is that when we were, I went back and I boosted the audio. I don't manipulate the audio. I just boost the audio to ensure the fact that people could hear it and maybe hear it without headphones. But this was distinct enough that I didn't really have to boost the audio at all. And what you hear is the live audio feed to the cameras. So I know of no other investigation that I can come across. People go to a lot of these purported haunted locations and they'll get different experiences, right? That's usually what happens, right? There's nothing quantifiable when you go to these places. It's usually different. I may hear a voice. You may hear a knock, I know of no other place, and I still have not yet come across anything where two separate investigators or investigations heard the same exact thing. Right. Never. And I think it's so unique, and I'm so happy and grateful that we were able to catch that. And it really hits home for me that what we're doing, has some kind of, it's steeped in reality. It's not, it ceases to become faith or a good guess. When you have something like this, it's absolutely, I think, concrete evidence that there is either a different plane, something else going on, and so I know I get all excited and worked up about this, but I really think that it's important. I think that this is an important evidence capture that I love to share with people. Is that, and again, you can go on our YouTube channel. We have the actual video that's on there. I also did a mock-up video intercutting ghost adventures of what they experienced and what they said and our experience. So, if you want to check it out, I really, really, truly believe that it's really inspirational, I think, from a standpoint of giving concrete evidence that there is something that basically is unexplained out there. We still don't have an explanation for it. And here's kind of the ironic kick to this, right? The follow-up to this.
Oh, yes.
Is that a couple months later after we post the video, we get an email from somebody who lives on that block, that lives down at McPike Mansion, or down from McPike Mansion, and said, I've lived there for over 35 years. Is that we hear this in the summer, every summer. All the residents there know about it, and we take it for granted. We don't really broadcast it. We don't tell anybody about it, but I'm shocked that you guys actually caught the audio. We've always tried. Nobody's ever really caught the audio before, but we hear it. We experience it every night, and we know that there's no horses. And so that even gives me more gratitude that we caught something, and that we caught something that other people have experienced that's paranormal, that's really unexplained, So I'm sure it's residual. Is that I don't think, it's not like you can talk to horses. So, or maybe people can, I guess.
Or it's a different dimension, or it's a parallel universe, or so many options what it can be. And it's like, if I didn't see that red and white streak, it would have never caught my attention. We would have never walked out there, and we never heard it. Yeah. And so it's like, what was that was trying to cause my attention? And I'm happy it did.
Yeah, right. Really am. So that really gave us a lot of energy to continue forward and to continue to try to find the answers. Will we? I don't know. But we're certainly going to put our best foot forward to put evidence out there so people can make their own judgments. But I think solid evidence, not random evidence where you think something happened. Right? And that's what we try to do as a team.
Wonderful. I think it's really important too, because I think it's very actually life affirming, even though you're basically dealing with deceased people. And this is just my opinion, but I think that it's very natural to experience bleed over or whatever you want to call it, like what you were saying, Lainey. It could be alternate dimension, could be an alternate universe. And, because I personally believe in the omniverse, which includes everything. But we live in a very carefully constructed matrix where there's been no frame of reference for this. It's like it's been erased from our consciousness. And so the work that you folks are doing is bringing that back, because once we open our minds to the possibility, then we start seeing more and more of what's there. Another example would be UFO sightings, right? There's a lot of UFO sightings because people are more open to it. So I think the work you're doing is very life affirming, because you're showing people this isn't all there is. And personally, thank God for that.
Right.
And, my guides have told me, I have quite an active paranormal life. My guides have told me when I was younger, I was afraid of death. And they told me, oh, Karen, if you knew how many times you have died, you would laugh at being afraid of death. And so what's happening is you're helping to remove fear, not instill fear. You're giving folks a chance to see some facts so that it's not all woo-woo. And I believe what I channel is real, but at the same time, that's pretty unprovable, right? You're coming up with provable information. And I just think it's really, really amazing what you're doing. I think it's exciting. And I love your intention and where you're coming from with it all. Can you tell us any other of your amazing experiences? Can you share with us?
You want to tell her about a recent one?
About the Fowler Theater?
Yeah, go ahead.
We were at the Fowler Theater in Indiana, in Fowler, Indiana. And we walked through the place, and the guy's name was Dwight, who volunteers to run paranormal investigations. And we're walking through, all of a sudden I get this feeling behind the stage that someone hung themselves, and they died a very tragic death. I don't know why. I kept it in, and I was talking with Dwight, and then I asked him, I go, Dwight, did somebody hang themselves behind the curtains on stage? And he goes, yes. How did you know that? He goes, nowhere is that talked about online. We keep that really quiet. And I'm like, I don't know. I got this feeling. Yeah, I just knew, and it's so hard to explain how I knew that. And that's happening more and more now, as long as I allow myself to tap into it and allow the information to come to me. I didn't even tell you about that.
No, and so when she actually brought it up, I mean, she didn't mention to me when we were during the investigation. And so let me backtrack just a second here to let everyone know how we normally investigate, right? Because I think it's important, because if you've watched the shows or if you know other paranormal groups, what they do is they'll have somebody who's designated as a researcher, and they'll go and research the location, right? And so they'll, disseminate the information that might be provided historically. They'll also disseminate the information that is provided by other investigators of hot spots, in the location. What we try to do is that we do things a little bit differently. We don't research the location at all. We don't delve into it. We know that the location, the most we usually know about a location is that it's reportedly haunted, okay? And that there has been, known activity there throughout the course of a period of time. What we try to not see what that activity is. We don't want to know about the deaths that were there, or that, for example, there's a little boy that runs around the backside of the home, okay? We don't want to know any of that. And the reason why people be like, well, then you're just kind of like shooting in the wind. I believe, and Lainey agrees with me on this, is that you're not influenced when you go into the location. You're there, you know that it's reportedly haunted, right? But I want to have pristine, genuine experiences, and not something where I'm looking out because somebody said in that corner there's a dog that comes all the time and walks, right?
Right.
I don't want to know that. is that because human nature is, right? You're going to focus on that, and sometimes, with the way the mind is, as I'm sure you know, Karen, sometimes you can manipulate things that that may not really be there. That you're instituting something or believing something that you're forcing yourself to actually manifest something, right? So we don't like to do that.
Absolutely.
And so that's how we investigate. And what we do though is we come about halfway through the investigation. Normally there's a person there who is in charge of the location. They usually don't leave us alone, but they're there to lock up, to help, to answer any questions, what have you. Is that so halfway through the investigation, we'll go and meet up with that person. We'll take a little break and we'll go meet up with them and tell them what experiences we've already experienced. Then we'll ask them for the second half of the investigation, have you heard of anything like of what we've experienced? Can you point us into a little bit different hot spots? Can you, expound upon things that you've heard of, right? And then we finish the investigation, So we started out pristine, and then we move to more information as we go forward, and that kind of a thing seems to work. So when Lainey stopped and she talked to Dwight, she had not told me anything about the hanging person at all. Like, didn't say a word to me when we were behind the screen. Said, hey, this thing's hanging. I feel like somebody's hanging. Nothing. So when she said it to Dwight, I was absolutely shocked, totally shocked. And that really hit home for me more so than any other time that we've ever done an investigation together, was when she says something and she feels something. Now I'm totally captivated with what she has to say and what she's feeling. Whereas before, even though she used to tell me, well, let's go over here, and we did get evidence, but I wasn't totally convinced about the fact of what she was sensing was really a sensitive thing, or maybe she was just getting lucky, right? Is that, but after that day, I no longer question anything. Is that because if you would have seen the look on Dwight's face when she brought it up, he was shocked, and I was just as shocked, and I was videotaping it, and I was shocked. So, but
also with the little boy.
Yeah, tell her about the little boy at Fowler.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so what Dwight was doing at the same time we were investigating, he was watching his security cameras because we want to see if he can catch something too as we were mobile walking around. Well, we didn't hear it with our own ears. After reviewing the evidence, we heard a little boy in the theater say, Mom, which was really, really odd, and we kept replaying it. So anyway, we sent it to Dwight. We said, look, this is what we caught. Well, he went ahead and looked at the same time, and he got a voice.
With the CCTV cameras that he had.
With his cameras, the way his voice was, it said, Mom, like a demonic kind of sound. I'm not sure why that happened.
So
something with the audio.
Yeah, we have a theory is because closed circuit cameras generally run 15 frames per second. Not to get overly geeky with everybody, right? But normal video runs 29.9 frames per second. Cinematography basically shoots 24 frames per second, right? Unless they're doing 4K kind of shoots. Is that so? My theory is because closed circuit cameras are not really set up to pull audio well. They're actually set up to pull video, right? And and to conserve space, they don't do a fluid video thing. It's a series of pictures, like a picturograph where you would turn it and you would see horses running around, right? If you had different drawings of horses in different, states of running, it's that old kind of like picturograph wheel, and so that's kind of the concept of how most closed circuit cameras work. They take a series of pictures relatively close to one another, but they don't really, it's more along the lines of like 15 frames per second versus, a full 30 frames per second. And I believe that when he pulled it down and he plays it back, audio-wise, at a normal speed, right, it makes the threshold go down of the audio that he captured. Just a theory. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know for sure, but our static camera was a true video camera, actually videotaping, right? So it was up in the balcony, and it was taping. Now, one of the other interesting things with that, Dwight was really blown away because he had had a couple of groups. He had just started allowing people to come into the theater to do this. And it's a movie theater. It used to be a vaudevillian theater and an opera house before. Is that so he allowed people to come in, and we were only like the third group or whatever that he's allowed to come in. Well, a previous group had actually caught a boy's voice saying something, but they couldn't really make it out. Right? Is that, and people who had worked there reported hearing a boy's voice. Right? We came to find that out afterwards. But he was so shocked, again, corroborating evidence, right? It wasn't just our camera that caught it, okay? It was his closed circuit camera and our camera clearly caught this mom, right? So, I mean, another...
But he did not hear it at the time it happened.
No.
So it was, of course, after we reviewed the evidence, which is why it takes hours to review, like, evidence.
Right.
And trying to look for something or listen for something. But Dwight was shocked. He was absolutely shocked. At the same time that was happening, he caught a little mist outside. He had the CTC cameras set up outside also, and he was reviewing the same time that we got the boy saying "Mom." He said there was a little mist.
There was a mist that came across the curb.
The theater.
You know, and we have that on our site too. That you can take a look at that because he was nice enough to let us pull that down.
Right.
So we did I did a comparison video between his audio with the mom and my audio with the mom, and then also you know, he sent that CCTV footage. He said, "Look at this." He said, people kept saying that it was a rat or something. There's no rat there. There's nothing. There's no raccoon. There's no rat. There's no anything. It was clearly a mist that goes up the curb and goes in. So, is that, but again, you know, as we progressively do this, and it's unfortunate that the country right now is going through this whole coronavirus thing, is because even though we go to haunted locations, right, we want to be super respectful of all different counties and provinces, of not to go there when they have, you know, shelter in place order, right? So our kind of, you know, we're kind of on hold at this point. Now, we still have a couple things set up in May that we don't know if they're going to be canceled or not at this point. We have one at the end of May, and we have one at the beginning of May. And
these investigations, upcoming investigations you're talking about?
Yep, upcoming investigations, right? One of them is Dwight invited us back multiple times after this Fowler Theatre experience, and there's another jail that's similar to Crown Point that actually is down the street from the. This is a small town, but it's down the street from the Fowler Theatre, and he has an agreement with the county sheriff that select people can come and investigate. They don't publicly let people just come there. But so you know, he was corresponding with us all over the course of the summer after we left and we caught this evidence and stuff last year. And he was like, "Hey, can you know, you want to do the jail? If you want to do the jail, just let me know. I'll, you know." So he kept insisting about coming to do the jail. And so I finally said to Lainey, I go, "Well, why don't we, you know, since we're in a course of ramping things up to start investigating before this coronavirus thing happened, we start to try to book stuff in like December for the next upcoming year, because it does, believe it or not, you know, some dates these things are not just, that's not their only purpose. Like a lot of the times the landmark commissions and that kind of stuff will only allow certain pockets of time for somebody to do a private investigation, right? Otherwise they don't allow people to come in there just willy-nilly to come and investigate every weekend. Now some places do, some places want the money, some places don't, right? But it is money. We don't do this, you know, we actually pay them so that they can keep the historical property up and running. We pay them to go and investigate and to allow other people to experience things like this. So again, we're going to the Fowler County Jail at the beginning of May, unless we have to postpone this. And then at the end of May, right now we have the Cambria House, which is new to us, and we happen to be on Beyond Reality Radio with J.V. Johnson. about a month ago, and the second guest that was on there owns the Cambria House. It's in I can't even I think it's called Nauvoo.
Nauvoo, yes, you're right. Nauvoo,
It's
Illinois.
like Nauvoo, Illinois. I think there's like 10 people that live there.
Okay.
Is that but it's downstate from us. It's more mid-state than it is down as far as Alton. But so we're gonna go there, and the ladies super accommodating. We have the building for the whole night, and so a lot of the only thing that she would tell us, because I didn't listen to her full interview after she was on after us, is that but I have corresponded with her, and she said, look, she goes, I'll send you or not send you whatever you don't want to know or what you want to know, right? And she said, here's the overview. Indian burial, real prolific around the Revolutionary War. And she said, that's all I'm going to say. She said, that's, and that's all I want her to say. Now she has sent us a PDF and that kind of stuff, but I refuse to read it, and so does Lainey. So we're going to go in cold and do our normal thing, and then get together with her, afterwards, or read that when we're on a break, and then, but we have full permission to do the building and the surrounding area. So that's fun, and I really hope it comes to fruition, right? Because so many things and so many investigations and so many paracons right now in this unfortunate climate, right? And we're just being respectful. It's not like we're going to influence anybody in a community, because we're going to what is essentially an abandoned house. Right. Where, so I mean, you couldn't shelter in place any more than that, right? I mean, you're going to usually an abandoned area, way off the beaten path from towns or what have you, and nobody's around, and it's just us. So, but we want to be respectful of everybody else's shelter in place orders and stuff. So, we'll see. We'll see if we get the opportunity. Really hoping, even if we don't get the jail at the beginning of May, really hoping that we get the get the Cambria House, because I think we definitely need a break after being at home all this time.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, we've known each other 14 years. We still don't want to kill each other, and we're home. We've been home for like 2 weeks, right?
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, I really hope that that you can get out and about and get back to what you're doing. Absolutely. So, as you know, this show is for everybody, but it's also particularly for people who are newly awakened and for people who are awakened and isolated. Do you have a message for folks before you leave us today? Do you have anything you want to share? Anything, words, anything at all?
I think just having a really good mindset is definitely very important, and your mind is so powerful, and just keeping a positive attitude is definitely going to be very helpful in this time.
And I would summarize this just with our experience and stuff. There's never an end.
Right.
Always remember that no matter what you do, no matter what life throws at you, right? Mm-hmm. There's never an end. There's never a reason to end, right? So, even people who are in their darkest days, always remember that there's never an end, and there's always something new. Always.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Lovely. Now, before I say goodbye, I just want to ask you if you would stay on Skype just for another minute after we end the show. I just a couple things I want to say. And I want to thank you so much for making the time to be on the show with me today. I know everyone's going to love what you've had to say. And of course, I want everyone to go and check out your work and what you're doing. And I want to just thank you. It really means a lot to me.
Oh, and thank you so much for spending the time with us. Is that and allowing us to get our message out there? Is that it's been great, and is that we'd love to come back at some point and give you more stories.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, take care.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.